Do you think your son, Elon, has made a mistake by going so political, right? Because like you said earlier, he was such a beloved tech figure that now since
it's called no choice.
Today, I have a very interesting episode. I've been speaking with Elon Musk since 2022, trying to make this interview happen. And with everything going on in the world right now, and everything going on with his son, Elon Musk, I thought this would be the perfect time. So I reached out again, and we finally made this conversation happen. I was really excited for this interview because to me, it's a rare opportunity to speak to the father of the most successful human in history and one of the most controversial figures today.
My heart goes out to you.
There's many photos of Hillary Clinton, Obama, Kamala Harris, and all these people doing exactly the same thing.
Elon has had some harsh words for his father over the years, and Errol has been the subject of many controversies. I wanted to get to know the man behind the headlines, both as an individual and as the father of Elon Musk.
You had a kid with your ex-wife's daughter, who you kind of raised, right?
My goal was to ask tough but fair questions, push back when needed, and really get to the core of who Elon Musk is.
To live with my son, Kimball.
Sorry,
I'm trying to answer your questions. Your questions are so impossible to answer.
You're not answering them.
But your questions are impossible to answer.
At moments, things may have got a bit heated, but I believe that makes for a really revealing and open conversation.
That's so dumb. That's really a dumb question.
I thought that's what you were getting at.
It's a dumb question.
Yeah.
But it's the sort of question stupid people would ask.
But without further ado, I introduce Elon Musk.
I wanted to know, can you just tell me a little bit about where you're from and just a little bit about you, something that people might not know?
Where I'm from?
Yeah, where you're from.
I was born in Pretoria to a British woman and a South African man whose father had been British. And we were very poor, very, very poor people. My mother was an immigrant. I first grew up in Hillbrow, where the immigrants sort of congregated. My father spent 6 years in the war, and he came back shell-shocked. So he was a
cryptographer, eh?
Sorry?
He was a cryptographer in the Second World War.
He was with military intelligence, and he was very good at that. And he spent 6 years in that, all the way up to Germany. He saw a lot of terrible things, and he was very shocked by it, and never came right. He couldn't get a job after the war because he was really not physically suitable. His solace was drinking and smoking to try and always try and find something happy because he had seen a lot of terrible things. My mom told me afterwards. And I only found out in 1975, 30 years after the war, it was the first time I was ever told that he was in military intelligence in the war, because it was a crime to tell before that. There was a 30-year, you're not allowed to say anything kind of thing. And yeah, I heard some terrible things about the circumstances he had. He was involved in a deception thing in Egypt during the war, and all but him and one of his friends were captured by the Italians of all people. And because they didn't wear insignia, the intelligence people didn't wear any badges or insignia. They wore khaki outfits, I think, but they never wore anything else. So they were all shot by the Italians and executed.
Were you close with your parents at all?
Very, very close to my parents. Oh, very.
And your dad, did you have a good relationship with him?
Yeah, as good as it's possible. You know, I mean, we never had anything, you know, bad between us. I mean, he was a weak man, you know, very weak man. My mom, he survived because my mom worked hard. She had sewn sort of fighter aircraft fabric together before she came out from England on a refugee ship during the war. So she knew about that kind of stitching. So after the war, she got into the fur trade where they sew leather together. So she became an incredibly good at that. So she joined a furriers group called Poland, which was the biggest furrier group in Johannesburg. Furs were the big thing. And then her cutter, there's a guy who cuts the fur because, you know, it's leopard and mink and all that sort of stuff. And then she sews it together and they make these incredible outfits. And Leslie Gerber, he won the Irish sweep in 1952. he won a lot of money, £10,000, and which was an enormous amount of money at the time. And, you know, so he started his own group, his own farrier called Durbers. Today it's still the premier fashion house of Johannesburg, Durbers. So she worked for him, and she went with him, and so she made enough money to keep the whole family going. And finally she left my father because, you know, for whatever reason, she couldn't handle it anymore. And she took me and my brother back to England. So we went to live in England when I was 10, came back when I was 12, and that was a good experience. My father actually, while we were away, he was a prolific waster. He couldn't keep anything. He had no sense of anything after the war. He had no sense of planning. To him, life made no sense. You know, I never had money at school or anything like that. Throughout school, I started working for myself as a schoolboy, you know, going to the OK bazaars and trying to get jobs, which I did. But I soon realized, you know, I don't want to be a poor guy. I don't want to, as Elon said when he was about 12, you know, I remember somebody saying to Elon, you can't do this. When Elon said, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. And some older person said to Elon at the age of 12, the typical thing, you know, little boy, you're not going to find it so easy when you go out there.
He always thought he was going to be a millionaire.
Oh, no, I'm going to be a millionaire. So it's going to be quite, not going to be a problem for me. And so I had much the same thing. I left school, university. I got a lot of scholarships. I was pretty much the first guy in class all through. And then I got these scholarships, and then I finished engineering, and then I, by chance, worked for a firm of consulting engineers from England who treated South Africans as second-class people. Anyway, they did a real bad job for the government here and were told to leave. And as it happened, one of the older men in the practice said to me, I was the most junior guy, I was 23. He said, do you want to join me and we buy this practice? I said, what? And I joined him. So we bought the practice. It wasn't long, and I found it was very suited me, this work. And then it wasn't long before he came to me and said, few months, and he said, I can't do this because there's no regular income, you see. And he said he's got to have regular income. He was married, he had 2 children and so on. He wanted to get a job with Ucor, which was offered him a job. He was a very intelligent man. And so I said, fine. So he left. And it took me about 2 years to reach the level of most men who were in their late 40s, professional men. I was still about 24.
And how much did you make?
The first year I made over 100,000 rands, which would have been $150,000, was 1974. In today's money, it's about 10 million.
So you were very wealthy at a young age, eh?
Yes, I bought, much wealthier than other people.
Yeah. Elon's mom was May Musk, right?
Yes.
When did you meet her?
I first met her at primary school when I got back from England. I went to this school in Pretoria, primary school. So I moved halfway in through standard 5, grade 7. And and she was in grade 10, grade 5, you know, standard 3. And so that's the first time I ever saw her. And then we went through high school together. I took out all her friends, but I never took her out until she was in matric. Then I took her out, and then we clicked quite immediately and went out for 6 years, and then we got married.
So, and you were married for about 10 years, right?
We were married for 10 years.
And why did you guys divorce? Was the relationship rocky?
I'm still trying to figure that one out.
You don't know?
No, I don't know. I think we were, at the time, very much better off. Remember, my peers, the guys who were my age, there was it's similar with Elon. They could not compete with me. They could not compete with me. We lived, when I was 26, I bought the home that is today the home of the European ambassador to South Africa in Waterkloof in Pretoria. I was 26. It's probably one of the 5 finest homes in Pretoria. Before the European ambassador lived there, it was the headquarters of the United Nations for the Southern Hemisphere. So I owned that when I was 26. And we lived there. We had a chef. You know, the chef we had was even borrowed once for Henry Kissinger. When Henry Kissinger came to South Africa to sort out the Rhodesian question, they borrowed our chef for 3 weeks. So it wasn't typical to have a chef and live like that.
You were living a good life together, yeah.
Yeah, very different to the people of my age. So May had a twin sister, and her husband, you know, they lived in a little cottage. They didn't go anywhere. You know, we lived overseas. We came back. it was very hard for her. In some ways, she was also pushed into a world of women who were colleagues of mine, like Los Sol Kersner was 20 years older than me. I'm now on everyday personal friends with Sol Kersner's son, Brandon. And he's an incredibly nice guy, just as smart as his father. And so in those days, it was, well, of course, I saw Sol as much senior to me. But those were the people we mixed with. And so her own level of, her own age of people, she didn't mix with. And somehow it kind of got to a point where, you know, we split up. And I gave her the home in Natal next to the Oppenheimers there, their holiday home. And she went to live there. And it surprised me when I did go down to see my daughter who stayed with her, because my son stayed with me in Pretoria. And then, you know, I would go down and see May. And it surprised me, the people that she had as friends, because they were very, very much lower deck than the friends we'd always had. They were just people I would not normally have.
Plebs, eh?
Plebs, yeah, plebs. Not people I would normally have ever spent a minute with.
And when you guys got divorced, I think I read that you got custody of Elon, right? For a bit.
Yeah, when we got divorced, the custody of the two boys was with me, and the custody of my daughter, which was silly. I don't know why I didn't worry about that, but she was only 5. So Tosca went with her mother. The boys' custody was to me.
And what was that time of your life like? I want to know, what was it like spending time with your kids? Can you tell me some stories about them, especially Elon, when he was a kid?
They brought all their friends on weekends because we had a horse stud in Sandton. So we had we always kept about 6 of our own. And then we'd also take in other people's horses, the thoroughbreds, you know. So at times we had up to 14 thoroughbreds that some I was looking after, others belonged to me. And we had a menage, which is where you can jump, you know, show jump. Full menage built by Mickey Lowe.
Yeah.
He was an Olympic show jumper. And so having the boys there and they had motorbikes, the first motorbikes I bought for Elon and Kimball, they were 7 and 8, 7 years old and 8 years old. I bought them each a real motorbike. When I talked to Kimball recently about it, he said to me, "Dad, that was insane. These were real motorbikes. I mean, you could go 100 kilometers an hour on them, you know, on the main road if you wanted to. And because they were fully set up. Anyway, yeah, so on the farm, or we call it a farm, it was a horse stud, the boys could have a great time. So when their friends came, I never saw them, you know. So as a bachelor father, you know, I could more or less date, and, you know, girlfriends could come over. The house was enormous, you know. We had every single thing. We had a full-size snooker room. We had every possible. We had a gymnasium. We had a jacuzzi. We had a tennis court, everything. So I never really saw the kids and the boys. You know, all I was needed for was, "Dad, it's nearly supper time. You know, let's head to our restaurant," which was Longhorn, which we owned. So where they would, to this day, still tell me that was the best food they ever had in their lives, even though Kimball owns, with Elon, but Kimball owns 3,500 restaurants now. 3,500. It's hard to believe. But they spread out over 60 different countries, you know, like 50 states, the Dominican Republic, Jamaica, you know, Bahamas and so on. But there's, you know, that's what he does. He gets around to them in a Lear Bombardier jet.
And what kind of things would Elon get up to on the farm?
Well, like I say, they were very responsible. You know, they would saddle up the horses, go out riding. Those days, the Sandton Kyle Army area was grassland, so it was easy to go for rides and things. And it was very safe. There was no crime to speak of, you know. And so I hardly ever saw them. The friends would come. The second book that was written on Elon, called Risking It All, by Michael Flismus, he interviews many of those boys, and they talk about how I was like their second father, and these boys, their friends, and how they would have this great time. The only time we ever left the house, we had a home on the Vaal River. We had a plot there, and we had a big 22-foot ski boat with a 300 horsepower Mercruiser in it. We used to barefoot ski, so we would go down to the Vaal And that's the only time we ever left the house, is to go skiing and water skiing. And then, so what the boys only ever wanted me for was to go out and eat. And, you know, eating time. And eating time, for me, it was great because it was just a case of steaks and burgers, you know, go for it. And I never had to worry, you know, because it was like ideal for me in many ways, you know. I never had to tell them, do this, do that, don't do this, do this, you know. They sort of ran their own lives.
They kind of just did their own thing, eh?
Yes.
And did he ever get into any trouble? Because I want to hear some funny stories. Like, I mean, as a kid, right, I have a friend who wanted to study to become like a rocket engineer. And he, at school, made these rockets.
Yeah.
And the one day he took the pipe that he was building the rocket out of, and he plugged both ends and then drilled into it, and it exploded, and he pretty much lost one of his eyes.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So I want to know, he must have been doing stuff like that all the time.
Yes, we did have a situation where a boy, they used to mix zinc dust and sulfur to make the rockets. They did build small rockets, as you say, just like you're talking about. And one boy, they used to mix zinc dust with sulfur and add it to the, basically, gunpowder mix. And this thing blew up and took off 2 of his fingers and left him with a hole in his left hand.
One of Elon's friends.
Yes, Louis. His name was Louis. He eventually became director of Sunderland Observatory.
Oh.
So he continued in that field.
One of the things Elon's always spoken about is the fact that he was very badly bullied at school.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't bullied.
He wasn't bullied at school.
No.
So is he lying when he says that? Or?
Well, South African boys, let's look at the South African scene. I came back from England where, first of all, I left South Africa in standard 3 or grade 5. And my experience at school was that if you opened your mouth, you got caned.
You got smacked, yeah.
No, you got caned. With a whip cane. The girls would be hit with quite a heavy ruler on their open palms. They were standard. It was typical to be caned 3 times a week when I was at school in South Africa. Even as a young primary school kid. Kids were not well looked upon in South Africa. You were treated like I wasn't allowed, where we lived, we only had 2 rooms in a boarding house. Boarding house had a lounge for the people who lived in the boarding house. But as a child, as a boy, I wasn't allowed in the lounge. I was never allowed in a lounge. It was not allowed.
Yeah.
So it was different in South Africa. Kids had a hard time.
You're saying it was more normal back then. And even when Elon was at school.
I'd say, based on how it is today, you know, we're sitting here on a carpet that costs a great deal of money. My kids play with plasticine on this carpet or whatever. I don't care. But in those days, I wasn't even allowed to stand on a carpet.
Yeah.
When I went to England, I found it was different. So when we got to England, I found I actually liked children in the 50s. So it was very strange for me to be in a place where children were actually liked, loved. And many things were set up for children in England. So, you know, you just couldn't believe it. You couldn't do anything wrong. If you went to the corner shop on Fridays, all the kids got threepence, and then the little packets, quarter pound of sweets were all packed out for the kids to come and get their packet of sweets on a Friday. With the threepence was a coin with a hole in it, copper coin with a hole in it. And so England was an absolute eye-opener to me. And then we came back to South Africa. So on the first day that we came back to South Africa, I went to the school in Pretoria, English-speaking school. I didn't know anybody, and I wore sandals because my parents were still not terribly well off, and I didn't have the black toe caps and all that sort of stuff. I was challenged on the very first day to 10 rounds in the boxing ring. The school had a boxing ring set up in the little school hall, and I was challenged to 10 rounds by the school, I would say bully or champion, a real animal. And I was shocked because I didn't know anybody. And of course, you can imagine how I felt. I can still see that day. It's like it happened yesterday. The headmaster offered to be referee. Shall I let that sink in for a bit?
Yeah.
So the headmaster, Mr. Duplessis, he offered to be the referee. And I knew nobody, and I was put into a boxing ring on the first day at school with a thug. That's South Africa. That's coming from England. I couldn't believe it. So Elon went to school in South Africa later on. And so you have to see the difference of what life was. So from the moment he stepped into school in South Africa, particularly high school, it's dick measuring. You have to play rugby. If you don't play rugby, it's a problem. The teachers are not very smart. They know more about rugby than what the subject that they teach. So that's, if you do well, you get beat. They wait for you after school. They hit you with their sacks, their satchels or whatever. That's standard. I don't call that bullying. That's just how it is.
That is bullying, though.
No, it's not bullying. Because
like
sometimes
hazing.
they're the same size as you. Yeah. Bullying is where a big person picks on a little person who can't defend himself. So the boys learn to defend themselves. My boys learn to defend themselves. On one occasion, when Elon was only in standard 6 or grade 8, a little boy, this is again typically South African, a little boy's father in the same grade had committed suicide. I was told by the headmaster afterwards. And this little boy went home or wherever they lived, and he actually discovered his father hanging, which is pretty rough. But in South Africa, it's pretty normal.
I know someone that came
That's
home
pretty normal in
and
South
their
Africa.
father was hanging too.
Yeah. So it's pretty normal, you know. So, of course, it was talking point at school, you know. And this little boy didn't feel very good about it, I'm sure. And Elon made the mistake of saying to this little boy, your father was stupid. It's not a thing you should actually say, you know.
Never. No.
Elon had a tendency to say that. He still does. And in fact, in America recently, you know, in the recent years, it's quite normal in America to call people a douchebag, a poeslap in Afrikaans. Now, if I went to the local night spots here in this West Coast area and said to one of the Afrikaans guys to his face, there's a poeslap, I would probably wind up in hospital for at least a week or two. For sure. My nose would never be the same again, and my cheekbone would probably be crushed. That's right now. And so would I do that? Would you do that?
Probably not.
No, I don't think so. You could do it in homosexual territory in Camps Bay or something. You can't do it here. By grade 8, Elon stood a good, nearly 6 foot, I'd say, maybe 5'9" or something. And this boy was probably about 5 foot. He looked very small compared to Elon anyway. And he was a stocky little guy, and he pushed Elon down the stairs. Elon went down 2 flights of stairs from the second floor to the ground floor. He was like severely injured. Then this boy ran down and apparently found a piece of wood or something, and started hitting Elon with a piece of wood. Elon was in hospital for 2 weeks. So that was, I had to take Elon out of that school. I wanted to charge it. I wanted to go to the police with it. And when the headmaster, I went to the police, Randburg police, and they were skeptical. And then when the police came with me to the school and everything, the headmaster explained the circumstances. The police said they will not make a case out of this because what Elon said was sufficient cause, you know.
Do you think the fact that Elon had Asperger's made him feel a bit like of an outcast at school?
No. I think he felt a bit of an outcast in some ways. You know, he always went to school in a Rolls Royce, and we always had a private airplane, and he traveled a great deal overseas. So it wasn't easy for him to fit into the peer group, especially at an ordinary government school, where these boys didn't have things like that and didn't do that kind of thing. And so he should have gone to a private school, would have been better, like St. Scythians, which I thought of putting him in. But they didn't want to go to a private school because they went to a private primary school before May and I divorced, and they thought it was like a concentration camp. They described Victoria Waterkloof Waterkloof Preparatory School. It's a private school in Victoria. They thought of it as, they said it's like a German concentration camp, especially for the live-in boys.
And when did you realize that Elon had Asperger's?
No, I never heard of Asperger's. I only heard about it when he went on Saturday Night Live and somebody said he's got Asperger's. No, I never
So you
heard
didn't
of
know that he had
Asperger's.
Asperger's?
No, I never heard of it. And it said something about you focus intensely on one subject. What I did have was, I knew that Elon was like that. My brother's like that. I realized, I saw from a very early age that he would focus very intensely, just like my 7-year-old and 8-year-old now does the same, who calls himself a gamer. He's 8 years old, he calls himself a professional gamer. My son of now, the 8-year-old that I've got, he's nearly 8.
And do you think that Elon enjoyed his childhood in South Africa?
Oh, yes. If you read, he says no, he didn't, which is not true. He's just looking for sympathy on that side. I don't know. But if you read Vlismus's book, which is a South African sports writer who wrote the second book, Risking It All, he interviewed the friends, Theo and Danny and so on, Elon's close friends that he kept all the years. You know, he invited them both to his 30th birthday, which he held at a castle in England for a week. When he turned 30, Theo and Danny came. So he was very close with them. And Danny, in Vlismus's book, and Theo said, life with me was just terrific. It was water skiing, motorbikes, horse riding, and steaks and hamburgers.
And did you guys ever confide in each other, right? Like, as me, growing up, I've had a lot of my own issues. I've suffered through addiction. I didn't do very well at school. And for me, my dad has always been the person, and my mom, but obviously I'm talking to you now, you're Elon's dad, right? So my dad was always the person that when I really felt like my back was up against the wall and I was in trouble and I had nowhere else to turn, I would always turn to my mom and my dad, right? Was there any ever moments where Elon really confided in you or needed some advice? And what were those moments?
No, I was very hands-on in that respect. I mean, we held a lot of discussions, you know, about everything because I'm very academic. I mean, my big thing right now is I've just spent 2 weeks in Dubai in December with the Sheikh as a guest of the Sheikh of Dubai, where they asked me recently, what are we going to do next? And I happened to say right in the beginning of December, I said, well, we need to study space-time travel and gravity, and we need to solve fusion if we expect to go forward in the world to actually experience the popular vision of the future that we, otherwise in 100 years from now, we'll still be doing exactly the same. And so that was taken up by the press because all the people were there, and this went from one meeting to another. And now it's now all over the world that this institute is going to be established, and it's going to study these things. And we're going to source. It's going to be in Dubai. We're actually going to build a 100-story high building. It's going to be the most exclusive building in Dubai. It's going to house the institute, which they want to call the Musk Institute.
Yeah.
The building's going to be called the Musk Tower. It's all over the world. And everybody knows about it. It's taken 2 months. And that's simply because that's something that is in my mind. And we always talk, so as they were small, we were always talking about all these kind of things. And I've even, you know, of course, said to Elon, not now, long ago, rockets are not the way to go. Rockets are okay, but it's not the way to go. We can't do interplanetary travel with rockets.
I'm talking more emotional things, though, in terms of like, because Elon, right, he is a genius. He's undoubtedly a genius, right? He's obviously got flaws as well, but he's had a very interesting life and a very unusual upbringing, right? So it seems like when he was at school, he feels he didn't fit in. He also had Asperger's, and from what he said, I don't think he felt that connected to you guys growing up. But
that's not true.
You don't think so? Like, what kind of things would he confide in you? Did he ever tell you about things that he was struggling with or dealing with? Because
he never struggled academically, so there was
no. I'm talking about emotionally.
Girls would be a problem. One time, they were both very slow. Kimball was very good looking. Kimball, to my mind, Elon was very good looking. A handsome guy, you know, if he wanted to be. Kimball was beautiful. You know, he's better looking than average, better looking than Brad Pitt, better looking than Rob Lowe or Brad Pitt. Kimball, you know, still is. And so So Kimball didn't have much problem. And Kimball would sometimes bring girls home, pretty girls, and I would go like, oh, my God. And Kimball would, I'd say, she's lovely. He'd say, oh, no, Dad, I don't like her. You know? So I'd say, Kimball, you lucky bugger. But anyway.
And Elon?
Elon would not. He would try. He was more shy. And on one occasion, he did invite a girl out to go to the movies with him. And the arrangement was I would pick them up, take them. Of course, he had no way of getting to the cinema.
Yeah.
Sterland, which I happen to be the consulting engineer of Sterland in Pretoria and at that time. And in fact, in Johannesburg, Sterland as well. And I drove him and the girl to the cinema, had everything there, ice drink, all that sort of stuff, which we did. And I'm advertising now, you see. And then his parents were her parents were going to pick them up. So I got a call from him, from a call box, to say that the girl had been picked up, but they'd left him at the cinema.
Why?
I don't know. I couldn't believe it. I said, you're joking. You serious? So I drove in and picked him up alone. So I don't know why people do things like that. So he was, as his first wife has said on interviews that when she first met him, he said to her, I've got some terrific books on rocketry. Would you like to come to my dorm? They were in dormitory together at university to see my books on rocketry. That's actually what she told the interviewer.
That was his pickup line.
Well, he actually did want to show his books on rocket travel.
But that was his way of trying to
he
show interest in that.
So he's never, Kimball is somebody that makes friends instantly and everybody thinks they've got a friend for life. Of course, Kimball couldn't care less about you, I think. But to anybody else, once you've met Kimball, you're definitely under the impression that this guy loves me because that's how he behaves. People have come to me with Elon over the years and said to me, when he's an adult even, especially, when they're leaving and say, oh, I'm on my way now, they whisper to me, your son doesn't like me at all. This is now Elon. And then I'd say, why? Why do you say that? This has happened a few times. And then they'd say, no, he doesn't like me. And then I'd go to Elon and say, so-and-so thinks you don't like him. And Elon will come over, oh, no, why? Why do you think that? He tries best to make up for it, It's just that you'll be talking, this Asperger thing applies. You'll be talking to Elon, and to a certain extent, I was the same. I've mellowed. You'll be talking to him, and you'll see his mind's not on what you're saying anymore.
He'll just go somewhere else.
And then suddenly, while you're telling him something, he'll just stand up and say, I've got to go now, and walk away. Sorry, I've got to go now. He won't be rude. He'll say, sorry, I've got to go now, and he'll walk away while you're in mid-sentence. And that is an issue.
What's it been like for you, right, as his father, to watch him go from the kid you raised to being literally the most successful person in human history? I mean, it must be insane from your perspective.
Well, we've always been doing things, you see. So even when I was a young professional guy or whatever, we were always doing things, we were always doing things.
But was there a moment where you realized, like, wow, my son has really made it?
Well, the money thing wasn't new to me because by the time I was 30 myself in South Africa, people have often asked me, and I think you asked me, why am I still here? Or I think people have asked me that a lot. And by the time I was 30 in South Africa, the home I lived in was our primary home, is today the home of the European ambassador, which you can imagine is probably a fine home. Before that, it was headquarters of the UN. So that was our home. We had our own chef. We had several servants. The house had 8 bedrooms, and it was built in 1927. So it was very beautiful. It was designed by Herbert Baker. It was an incredible home. And our garden we had air rights over the city, so nobody could build anything in front of us. And I never even went down into our garden. It was too big. We actually were on well over an acre.
Yeah. So you've always been wealthy.
Yes. I had a twin-engine airplane, probably my fifth by that time.
But I mean,
I was 30. We had an ocean-going yacht. We
it's
had
a
place
different
in the
level
bush.
of wealth, though. Even though you were wealthy,
Yes.
I mean, Elon is the wealthiest.
My wealth my wealth, I counted wealth to a certain extent, I still do, not in how much money I've got in the post office, but in what I've got. And it puzzles me, and in a certain way, it still applies, because Elon and Kimball have always known what it is, although they do have private jets, and several of them. But because they've always had all these things, they don't have a great yearning to have these things. You see what I mean? And so they don't have many things. Their money's tied up in stocks and new investments and stuff like that. For me, in those days, it was, what's the point of me going around saying I've got X stock in Barlow's and I live in a flat?
Yeah.
Where I could live in a fine home and go to the bush on weekends or to my Vaal property on weekends. Why on earth would I want to be able to live in a 2-bedroom flat and look at my stock portfolio for fun? That's not my idea of fun. It still isn't. In fact, I've just recently received a lot of money for something, and the first thing I'm going to do is upgrade my aircraft that I have. I want to upgrade the existing aircraft that I've got. Why? Why would I want to sit with something that means nothing to me and something I use all the time, and I'm using something less? So as far as your question is concerned, we've always been in that position. I have a Rolls Royce which is in the garage at the moment, having some work done on it. I have a Bentley here. These are things that matter to me. Bentley was bought for me last year by Elon, as a matter of fact. He asked me whether he should send me a Tesla. I said, there's no charging stations here. So he said, what would you like? I said, well, I'd like a Bentley. So he sent me this Bentley.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit more about you, right, and your relationships over the years. So I've got a little bit of a timeline over here. So you married May Musk, and then you guys got divorced a little while later.
In 1980.
After that, you meet Heidi Bezuidenhout, who has a daughter, Jana Bezuidenhout, from a previous marriage, who was very young at the time. And then from there, you guys divorce, you and Heidi divorce. And then a couple of years later, I think it was kind of out of nowhere.
14 years later.
You had a kid with your ex-wife's daughter, who you kind of raised, right?
Not right, no.
But she was around as a kid when you guys were married.
Yes, Haida and I married. It's Haida Marie. We married in 1992.
Yeah.
And she was much younger than me, Haida. It didn't really work out. So we divorced after 2 years. But in those 2 years, we had a daughter, Alexandra. Haida and I had a good relationship, but once we married, like all these things, didn't really pan out too well. And I didn't really get on. Our family, very Afrikaans, and I really struggled with that. And we got out of it. And she went on and married another man. I never saw her for much of her, except when I saw my daughter, which was about every month I'd go and see our daughter. And they were really difficult, so I'd like take her for an ice cream, And this went on for about 3 years. And then Haida got divorced from this guy, and we bumped into each other. We got divorced in 94, and about 98, we saw each other again more on let's go out for supper and all that kind of stuff. And turned out she'd had a very bad marriage with this other guy, a policeman who had problems. And we started seeing each other again, and we remarried in 99, you see. But in the meantime, when Haida so I knew her daughter, Jana, in that first 2 years, when Jana was about 6 or 7 or 8 or something like that. And I had very little to do with, and then even then I can remember the children, because my friend said to me, why are you marrying somebody with all these children? But I did everything I could for them. Didn't work out. So, but when I remarried Haida, she'd already placed her 3 children into the state custody, state home custody. Do you understand? She'd made them wards of the state.
Why?
She couldn't afford to keep them. The policeman didn't have the income
to
to look after.
So she gave her kids up to.
Well, I don't like to
States.
use it as strong as that. She had to do something, and
Yeah.
so the kids went in as wards of the state, and they went to the Louis Botha Children's Home. It's a terrible. Well, it's a really nice place because as Rotarians, we used to sort of support it. You know, it's obviously, you know, a wonderful thing like Boys Town. You know. Anyway, so when I remarried Hayder, her children weren't with us.
Okay.
So the first 2 years of our marriage again, from 99, 2001, it was just Ali, and then in 99, Rose was born. So we had a little baby, and just me, Hayder, and then we would try and see the children when we were allowed to, her children, which was not often, once a month or something. And then we decided that we're going to apply to have them taken out of the children's home, which was a very hard thing to do. And because the state didn't want to take a chance. So it was people sitting around tables, huge tables, 20 people, and you have to try and convince them. So they agreed to let us take the children out one by one. And that even involved going to a court and being in front of a magistrate and all sorts of things. That's me, because it was placed on I had to prove that I was now prepared to do this. You
To
see
take
me?
care of them.
Because the state didn't want to screw around. Yeah, so we got the one out, the oldest one, Herman, and then we got, we actually then got the other little boy out. He was also a boy. They were concerned about the girl, Jana, so she came out last. So we got them out in about 2002. And around about 2002, Elon had his first child, and he contacted us. We were obviously still in a lot of contact, and they were doing quite well. By 2002, Elon had made nearly $200 million with PayPal. And so he invited us over. Of course, they paid for me now. They had a lot of money. They paid for us to come over, to come and meet his little boy who was 3 months old. On the way there, we arrived in Raleigh in North Carolina, and the airline called me off the plane to tell me that they need to tell me something. I need to make a call to my children to tell me that the little boy had died the night before, the baby, Nevada. He'd passed away. My Elon's son. That was very horrific situation. And they were, you know, everybody was in a state, and they said, Dad, we don't think you should come. Elon, turn around, go back to South Africa. We don't want to see anybody. Of course, we didn't turn around. So we continued, and Elon at that point was renting the top floor of the Beverly Wilshire, the penthouse, which is the one used in Pretty Woman, but it's very, very big. It can house about 4 big families. It's like incredible, palatial. He was renting this place for about, I don't know, 150,000 rands a night or something. And we stayed there, and we tried to pull ourselves together. It was very, very difficult. The child had just died in his cot, you see, something like that. And it was terrible. And you know, anyway, so when we were due to leave, Kimball was living in Colorado, and Kimball came down to LA and we all met for the last night. And then I've still got a photograph of that. I was looking at it just the other day. In fact, it's just been sent to me because CakeNet TV asked me for a picture of the whole family. And we had this photograph taken of all of us that last night before we were due to come back to South Africa, which I can show you. And they said, we don't want you to go back to South Africa. We want you to stay. So we said, what? They said, yes, you're not to go back. Nobody must go back. So we after much arguing and everything, the flights, of course, were lost, and we stayed. And Elon, my Hayder was not keen on staying because she was very Afrikaans. She had a lot of Afrikaans family here and all that kind of stuff. And they, as you know, they're very close together and all that. So we stayed. They immediately bought us a house in Beverly Hills. At the time, in today's money, it was $70 million they paid for the house in Beverly Hills for us. 70 million rands, anyway, not dollars. Maybe more, maybe 80 million rands. They paid for this incredible house. So we moved into that, and eventually, Beverly Hills is not. It's not a place, not great, you know. It's okay. It's not exactly the most friendly place.
Mm.
And so we moved from there to a 2-acre plot in Malibu, where Hader said she felt more at home. And we continued there. We put all the kids initially in Beverly Hills High School, 90210. You know, the one that's the movies, the TV shows.
Yeah.
The older kids went to that. Younger kids went to the primary school. And then we put them all in Malibu High School. And it didn't go well. We tried. I joined SpaceX as one of the early people in SpaceX. Only 10 of us.
Mm.
And renovating an old warehouse to start SpaceX.
Yeah.
Which today they turned into something so amazing. They made a movie there called Iron Man. But anyway, Hader was never happy. And so she said, unless we go back, I'm going to kill myself. So we tried everything. We brought her family to come and visit her in LA. Anyway, so when Hader did try to kill herself, and we were able to take her to hospital and save her life, I realized we have to go back. But in the meantime, Elon and them have kept I'm answering your question, by the way, had kept our passports. So what we did is we went and got temporary passports from the consulate in LA. And the word got out because Hader was forever on the phone to her family here. And the family here, one of the family here, sort of split the information, or what do you call it? Tipped Elon off.
Okay, yeah.
That we going to leave. So it was a race to the airport. So we got to the airport first, and all of us flew back, and they got to the airport too late to stop us. And after that, we left everything, all the valuable things, everything I had of value, carpets and paintings that were worth hundreds of thousands of rands that I had. Frans Ouders, Klaarhouts, Pierniefs, all my stuff that I left there that today would be worth, I don't know, several million rands. Left all my personal things, all left in America. And we came back to one house I had here in Erie Street, which, oddly enough, I sold a little after that to the government for Cyril Ramaphosa to stay in as deputy prime minister or deputy president. So it's a beautiful home on a 10,000 square feet or 1,000 square meters on an acre in Watercliff Ridge next to the American Embassy. And that I kept that house. I sold 19 other properties when we went to America. And and so Elon and Kimmel said they never want to speak to us again. That was the estrangement between me and Elon, nothing else. The people talk about you're estranged.
So we're actually talking about the relationship.
Talking about the relationship with me and Elon.
So no, I'm talking about you and you're going on a completely
I'm
different
giving
track.
you more interesting things.
Yeah, but I want to talk about this.
The relationship with Hader.
So you and Hader
when we got back,
split up, right?
No, when we got back to South Africa, I really wanted to stay in America. I had no real intention to come back here. I did it all because I thought that's what you're supposed to do for your wife, you know. We got back here and we got back to Pretoria and everything seemed terribly dull to me. So we sold that house that I just mentioned to the government and we moved down to the Cape. So I got a few million for that house and I was able to buy 8 houses down here at the time in the Cape and several stands. And we started living down here, but I just felt I was in nowhere. I was nowhere. And we decided we're going to divorce amicably. So I gave Hader, it's 2004, I gave her all the properties and my Vogue, my Range Rover Vogue, and another Range Rover that we had, and everything I had, and cash, 2 million cash. And I said, I'm going to buy a yacht, which I did, and I'm going to continue sailing because I'd always done that before, you know. I'm an ocean, I have an open ocean rating.
Yeah.
So then I started sailing for years, and I never saw Jana for a long time. I came to see, because it becomes more complicated, because it wasn't 2 years that we were back. In 2004, we got back, or around about 2004, we got back. We'd left in 2002. 2004, we were back in South Africa. about 2006 or so, the time seems to go quickly then, the boys said to us, we don't want, because they viewed Alexandra and Rose, that's my children with Hayder. They view them as their fully fledged sisters. As far as they're concerned, they're not half sisters. They are their sisters. Do you understand? Which I thought was rather good, rather nice. They don't want them living in a country where you have to have a machine gun on the front lawn. That was their phrase, not mine. We don't want Ali and Rose living in a country where you have to have sandbags and a machine gun on your front lawn, which is quite true. And so I, because up there at the time when they'd been there, everybody had razor wire and everything, rolls of it around their properties. Anyway, so they asked for Ali and Rose to come back to America. So we sent them back. So Ali and Rose went back to America to do schooling there, to live with my son Kimball. Okay? And I started sailing, and
sorry,
I'm
Errol,
trying to answer your questions.
You're going
your
way
questions
too,
are
you're not
so
answering
impossible to answer.
You're not answering them.
But your questions are impossible to answer.
Just answer what I asked, though. Just
Yes,
listen
but
to what
they're
I asked.
misleading answers. I never saw Jana from 2004 until 2014.
Yeah, so I don't mean to be rude, but I just know people
Ask
are
your
going to
question again.
they're going to have a hard time following you.
But ask your question.
I'm going to. So when did you? So after Heidi, right, Poseidon, you guys split. When did you start seeing her daughter?
The next time I saw her daughter was 2014.
Yeah.
So I saw in 2004, I started sailing the world, and I saw Jana again in 2014, which is, say, 10 years later, by which time I had moved back to South Africa because Rose, who was at school, at primary school in America, not Ali, not Alexandra, wanted to be near her mother during her high school years. So in about 2013, I was in Fortaleza in Brazil. Okay, that's a city near the Amazon mouth, major city. I was there when I received this request from Rose that she wants to be near her mother during her high school years. I had nothing in South Africa. No home, no property, no nothing. As far as South Africa was concerned, I'd immigrated. So I said, okay. So I came back to South Africa, came up the coast here to see what it's like. Initially thought I'd put Rose, I'd custody of Rose. That's the one request I asked for when we got divorced from it. When Hayden and I got divorced, I wanted custody of Rose. And so I thought we'd live in Cape Town, but then I saw it's too far from here to St. Helena Bay, which is 50 kilometers further up the coast from here. So I came up the coast and I saw that there's a high school here called Curo, and I could put Rose there. I was very concerned about Rose going to Curo because after 5 or so years in America, she spoke like, although she grew up Afrikaans speaking, she spoke like the Kardashians. You see, Rose spoke exactly like the Kardashians.
Yeah.
So I thought it might be difficult for her here, but it turned out to be a wonderful experience that she had here because there are a lot of well-off sort of people right here, and she mixed very well with the people at this Curo private school. So it was a very good high school experience, which caused me to buy a home in this area. So I bought this home. It was the most expensive house in Longabaan at the time, built by Metal Steel, and I bought it, and she lived here with me. And then in about 2014, which is about 2 years after Rose was at school here, I got a letter from Jana saying that she is in desperate states. She was now about 28, 27, 29 or something. She had a little girl of 6 that had been taken away from her by the state because she couldn't look after the child. And she was also an addict on stuff that was being sold here. Terrible story. And she doesn't know what to do, and she's living in a storeroom of a disused shopping center. So initially I asked Rose, I showed Rose the letter, and Rose said, leave her. We don't want anything to do with it because of the drug aspect. Then I sent it to Kimball, and Kimball said, I want nothing to do with it. Then I got another letter from Jana saying, if I don't get help, I'm going to commit suicide. So then I thought I better go and see her. So I drove to the place where she was, and I met her, and she was literally she was like, her legs were like broom handles. And she wore clothes that was her best clothes she put on, were all like, you couldn't believe it. And so I realized I got to help her. So I didn't meet the guy that she was with, some surfer, typical Cape Town rubbish. Plenty of them here. And no ambition, nothing, nafu,
Yeah.
And anyway, so, no interest, fuck all ambition, And that's standard here, not in Joburg, but here. And so I started giving her money for food and toiletries, which I thought was important for a woman. And the first thing I did was buy her clothes. So that although I was due to go overseas 2 days later, it was December, I think I was due to leave the country to go to America. 2 days later, I was able to fit in an opportunity to go to Canal Walk and buy her today about 15,000 rands worth of clothes, which she came back with. And then I left for the US, gave her money to spend while I was away. She was with this boy, man, or whatever it is. And then when I came back, I continued to help her. The money grew over the next 2 years to a little bit more every week. It was about 1,200 rands a week, which was enough for them to get by on at the time. And I bought them a second-hand car. And then in about 2016, she contacted me and said that she's on the street. This chap has thrown her out of this place that they were then staying in, a room somewhere in Flamingo Flay that they had. They hadn't paid the rent, turned out, for 3 months. It was terrible. And she's on the street and all her clothes on the street. So I said, well, have you got the car? Yeah, she's got the car. It was a hatchback. I said, throw everything you've got into the back of the car and come here, obviously, which she did. And she came here, and she was obviously in much better condition by that stage. And she stayed here for 3 weeks. And we got on very, very well, her and I. In fact, she was now a grown woman of just on 30.
How old were you at that time?
I was 7. When she first came back, I was 68. So I was 70.
Okay.
And
so it's just 40 years difference, eh?
40 years difference.
Yeah, roughly.
No, yes. That's right. And then she came back, but I can still run faster than you, my friend. Don't test me. Anyway, so it comes from yachting,
Yeah.
Anyway, so she stayed here. We got on incredibly well. She was a grown woman. And I hadn't seen her for years, except, of course, I met her in 2014. But even then, when I never went to see her, I used to send money through the banking system.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't have to go all the way. She was 60 kilometers away, so I couldn't just keep going there every time. So I would send her money. So then when she came here for the 3 weeks, we spent a lot of time together, and we just got on terribly well. And then she left, and Rose was still staying here. And then she left, and what she left is the boyfriend came lying on the deck outside, crying and bashing on the garage door and crying and all that sort of stuff, believe it or not, and howling and lying there all night, till the next morning. And she would tell him to leave, and he wouldn't leave. So eventually she said she's going to give him another chance. So off she went, and with him. Then a couple of months later, she called me and said she needs to see me. So she came, we sat out there, and she sat there and she showed me like a gram or something, what do you call it, for babies, or when there's a baby born, it's sort of mammogram, or not a mammogram.
Oh, yeah. It's a scan to see the baby.
Scan, right. She said, I'm pregnant. So I said, oh. So she immediately, I'm not sure what I said exactly, but I'm pretty sure not me. So she said, it is you because although I've been back with this guy, we don't do anything. We just like there together, And so I said, well, I didn't really believe that because that's standard story from women, So, so I said, okay, so she insisted. Initially, I didn't believe her, but she continued to insist. And then eventually I tried here in South Africa, it didn't work. And then I eventually spoke to a Canadian laboratory that got a special name that does this kind of stuff. And they said if I can send blood samples of her and me over cryogenically, where they keep it in a cryogenically sealed box to Canada, then they can tell me who the father is, whether I'm the father. So we sent, it was very expensive, about 20,000.
Jeez.
And so I did it, which is a lot of money for South Africans, as you probably know. And probably peanuts for them, but anyway, over there. But anyway, I sent this over. We waited and waited and waited. I sent it over when she was 3 months pregnant, and then it became 4 months, and then 4.5 months. And, she was showing a lot. And eventually the stuff came back. All the time I said to her, what are you going to do? Do you want to, sort of terminate the child? At the same time, I would not terminate any child of mine with any woman that I had. And if I chose a woman and decided she's good and she was pregnant, there's no way I would terminate the child, ever. She can go, child stays with me. That's my approach. So anyway, the results eventually came back when she was 4.5 months pregnant, that it is 99.9% my child. It's all the
So
stuff.
it's 100%. It's yours.
Yeah. Anyway, so then I said to her, "What now?" She said, "No, she wants the child." I said, "So do I." So we had the child, and immediately soon after the child was born, I thought, I'm not going to keep this quiet. She said, "Let's not tell anybody," and she was still with this character who thought it was his child. I think I don't know what she told him. She wasn't living with me, and Rose was still here. You see. So it was not something we could. Rose was in matric and in grade 12. So we didn't really know what to do. But then one day I knew Barbara Jones, who's the Daily Mail reporter in South Africa. And so I called her up, and because I'd been in newspapers for years from back in the 70s. And so I called her up and I said, "You want to hear something interesting?" She said, "Sure, she'll come up." So she sat there at that table and I said to her, "I've got a little boy." And I told her the whole thing. So it was front page news in the Daily Mail the next few days. And,
so you leaked the story yourself?
Yeah, I linked it to the Daily News.
Why
Daily
did you
Mail.
want people to know about this?
I don't hide about my children.
And were you not nervous for your ex-wife to find out that you had a baby with her daughter?
No, she was remarried. She'd remarried somebody else.
Yeah, I know that, but it's still unconventional,
No, she was living with someone else. That case, I should have been walking around outside her house saying, "What are you doing with this other man?"
So, but do you not think that's strange at all?
No. One woman's another woman. You must remember, in 2/3 of the world right now, marriageable age is 12.
Yeah, that's wrong though.
Well, you may think so.
You don't think
tell
so?
2/3 of the world that.
Yeah.
Don't tell the rest of the 2/3 and see what they do to you. They'll chase you away.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? Just maybe your idea.
How did your family react when they found out?
Because the marriageable age is not 12, the Western world has a lot of problems. Believe me, I don't agree with
Would you prefer it to be 12?
No. But on the other hand, there's a lot of problems as a result of it.
Like what?
Well, people get into heavy sexual relationships way before they're married. By the time they get married, if you look in the third world, or the 2/3 world, let's put it that way, a man won't take a woman who's secondhand. So if you're in the Western world, you meet a woman and you think she's nice, and you say to her, well, when you start to get cozy with each other, you say, well, I've had 4 other girls before you. She says, "Oh no, I've had 135 men."
Yeah.
Do you want her anymore?
I haven't come across that yet.
Would you want her anymore?
I'm not.
You
It
don't
depends.
want her anymore.
I feel like it's the same
You don't
with
want her
guys and
anymore.
girls. To be honest, that's how I feel.
Want her anymore,
Yeah.
unless there's something wrong with you.
For me, I see it this way. I feel like if a guy can sleep with a ton of girls, why can't a girl sleep with a ton of guys?
Well, that's all very nice. Unfortunately, it doesn't correspond with your system.
Yeah.
Your biosystem will tell you, don't do this. Your biosystem will tell you this is not good. Whether it doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah. So, but how did your family react?
That's why so many Western men are not married.
How did your family react when they found out?
Well,
I'm
Kimmel
very
said
curious.
it happens because he just had a child with one of his waitresses while he was married. He had a child, a beautiful girl.
And Elon,
She's
how
now
did
12.
how did he feel?
Elon, I never heard anything from Elon. Elon was not the sort of person who would even be interested. And he had so much problems of his own at that stage, he had so much woman problems of his own at that stage. So, he didn't say anything. My daughters, though, Rose was living with me. She immediately said she wants to live in somewhere else. She doesn't live here anymore. It was me.
Yeah.
She was in the middle of matric.
Why didn't she feel safe anymore? Or?
No. That'd be ridiculous. That's so dumb. That's really a dumb question.
I thought that's what you were getting at.
It's a dumb question.
Yeah.
But it's the sort of question stupid people would ask.
Okay.
And I say that to you straight.
Thank
So
you.
don't ask stupid questions like that. But you're not stupid. I can see that.
Thank you.
However, it's part of the, it's like most Western boys and girls started screwing each other when they're 15 and 16, but their parents don't know about it.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all hidden. It's all like two lives that we live,
Yeah. And I want to talk
Anyway,
now.
so so Rose heard about it. She said, "Oh, Dad, I can't live here anymore." So she had a very good friend. I said, "Why?" She said a very good friend, Megan, who lived up the way, and they all live in Mauritius now. They've left the country. She's going to go and live with Megan. So I said, "Okay, fine." So Megan was quite happy for her to finish her matric there, and then the next year, of course, Rose went off to America for university. So Rose is not too happy about it. Rose is getting married now in May, hopefully due to get married. And she's invited me and Jana, who you met earlier, to the wedding, but she doesn't want us to bring Rashi, who's probably the most beautiful boy I've ever seen physically, terribly intelligent, totally computer literate.
Is this
smarter than Elon Kimmel was
your
at his
recent
age.
kid, hey?
Hey?
Is this your new kid with?
Yes, Rashi.
Okay. Yeah.
We have two new kids. And Rose said, "Please don't bring Rashi and Mia because she feels uncomfortable." That's now. She still feels uncomfortable. So I replied to her, "Look, I feel uncomfortable with the guy you're marrying. He's the last guy on earth I think you should marry."
Yeah.
He was so upset when he heard this that he drove 200 kilometers from Stilbaai or something.
Yeah, still by.
To get here, nearly burnt out the car, burst into the house here to confront me over the fact that I said he's a scummy Afrikaner and brainless. Well, I didn't say that. She conveyed that to him, but I said, he's not the greatest. That's all I said. I didn't say anything like that. She said to him that. She made it up. I never said that. And so he was going to fight me. He was going to fight me. And Jana was here, but the rest of the family went downstairs. They could all hear what was going on. And I said to him, "Well, look, you're living on Rose's family allowance at the moment in Texas. She brought him there. He's from Cape Town. And you work as a ball boy at a golf club. Rose gets 80,000 rands a month family allowance. How are you going to support her? Because once you marry, you're not getting family allowance anymore. This kind of thing. So we have a problem. So we're trying to sort it out at the moment, whether I'll go to the wedding or not, because she doesn't want to see Russia and I don't want to see this guy she's getting married to. Because I can change gears through his nose.
Hey everyone, I'm super excited to introduce this week's sponsor, Odoo. If you've ever wanted to create a website for your business but had no idea where to start, trust me, I've been there. It can feel as complicated as launching a rocket, but Odoo's website builder makes it ridiculously easy. No need to be a tech billionaire or a coding whiz. Just drag and drop and watch your website take off. Odoo is an all-in-one business solution. Whether you're handling sales, inventory, accounting, or HR, everything is seamlessly connected in a single user-friendly platform. No more juggling 10 different apps. It's like autopilot for your business. And here's the best part. Their website builder is powered by AI, without the Tesla-sized price tag, of course. Just a few clicks to highlight your text, and Odoo's ChatGPT integration is right there with prompts to give you ideas on what to write on your website. You can make it shorter, more friendly, more persuasive. The choice is really yours. And here's the kicker. Your first Odoo app is free for life, with hosting and support included, plus a free domain for the first year. No hidden fees, no fine print, just smooth sailing, just like a Falcon 9 landing. So if you're tired of dealing with complicated tech, hit the link below and give Odoo a shot. It makes managing your business effortless, including website building. But seriously, check out Odoo. You'll look like a pro with their AI, and your website will be out of this world. Now let's get back to the video.
I want to know about your relationship with Elon, right? So I know it's a very well-known thing that your guys' relationship kind of was strained over the years, and from what I could tell, it fell apart completely.
No.
Did you at any stage fall out with Elon or have a bad relationship with him?
I told you what happened. We left him. They wanted us to stay in LA.
So that's what the fallout was about?
Yes, that was the fallout.
Because in a different interview, you said it was because he supported Trump.
No, that's different. Over the years, I would go back.
That you supported Trump, sorry, yeah.
Yes. So when we left America in 2004, they said they never want to see us again. So we had no contact for a long time, 2 years. They wouldn't reply. So even if we sent a message, they just didn't reply. Elon and Kimmel, they just didn't reply. So, but as time went by, they contacted us. We worried we don't want Ali and Rose here, living behind sandbags with a machine gun on the lawn. Okay? As it happens, the girl you saw earlier, Yana, had a 10-inch knife stuck in her side in the next town a week ago.
She was stabbed a week ago?
A week ago. Yes. Wake up, South Africa. Wake up.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway,
Yeah.
So, okay. So they don't want that. Will we send the girls back? So we sent the girls back. We asked them. That's what I do with my children. You girls want to go back in America? Rose, no. Ali, yes. Rose they eventually convinced each other they're going. So they went. So as the years went by, we would go over and see Ali and Rose, me and Hayder, together, which we did twice last year. And which we hope to do another twice this year. Anyway, so we started seeing Elon and Kimmel again, but nobody spoke. Everybody kept quiet. It was more like, don't say anything. And they were not happy. They were still not happy. They were really unhappy with what we'd done. It's just stupid. But anyway, then in 2016, I turned 70. So in 2016, around my birthday in May, I received a phone call from Kimball out of the blue saying, Dad, I want you to come to lunch at Il Paradiso on Tuesday. I'll be in Cape Town. Will you come to lunch at Il Paradiso on Tuesday? So I said, oh, okay, great. I didn't know you were here. So on the coming Tuesday, it was raining and everything, I recall, late May. I went to the restaurant Il Paradiso, which you probably know. And when I got there, it was completely blocked off by vans, black vans. And there was a big sign, restaurant closed, and all that kind of stuff. So I turned around and walked away. I thought, Kimmel must have made a mistake. And then a shout was made to me from the high garden of Il Paradiso saying, are you Elon Musk? So I said, yes, I am. So, I thought, oh my God. So then this guy said, we're waiting for you inside. So then I went through all the hundreds of security guards, and I went in, and there was Elon Kimball and about 50 people from the United States. 20 children and about 30 adults, all my grandchildren, or nearly all my grandchildren, all my grandchildren at the time. And about 30 adults. And the head of, one of the owners of Google, Scarlett Johansson, Amber Heard. Oh, I can't remember all the people. The guys, his names escaped me. Girls, of course, rather nice. I was quite interested in how short they were, but they were very pretty. Very short, only 5 foot high. But anyway, so turned out it was a surprise birthday party for me. So we sat down, had an incredible time together. And then after the meal, we were there for hours. You know, I got there about 12. And so at about 3 o'clock, we were still, the kids were having a great time because kids were having a ball in a separate room. And the kids came through every now and again to say hello to me. You know, all wanted to have their picture with me, sort of thing. And then at a point at about after lunch, Jon Favreau, who's a film producer in America, he produced this movie, The Jungle Book. These people had all been in The Jungle Book, and they were all heading to, you know, Mala Mala or one of the places up there, which belongs to friends of mine. And they, Jon Favreau said to me, leaned over from over there and said to me, I don't know if you call him Errol or Mr. Musk, but he said, I believe you support Trump. This was 6 months before the 2016 election.
Yeah.
Okay. So I said, yes, I support Trump. The result of which everybody in the whole restaurant burst out into laughter and just rolling around in laughter, like I told the most incredibly funny joke. And this carried on, and Elon and Kimmel sat there. I sat there, now what's this? And then when everybody had finished laughing, I said, they was calling, they were saying he's such a piece of this and he's such a piece of that and he's so stupid, and, you know, and also this is Trump now. And then I was so shocked that Amber Heard, or one of the women, came and started and held my arm and was stroking my jacket. Well, I was wearing a jacket, it was winter, you know, and she was wiping my arm saying, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry, you know. And I sat there, you know, and then Jon Favreau said, why do I support Trump? So I said, well, he's just like us, me and Elon and Kimmel, which brought out more laughter like you can't believe. And I tried to explain, you know, that I saw him as an independent, non-political guy. Getting into politics is such a good idea and all that sort of stuff. You know, South Africa had never been impressed with Obama's approach. You know, we realized we'd learned Obama's a queer married to a man who dresses as a woman. We'd all learned that. It's not common knowledge, you know, that
Michelle Obama's a man.
Of course. You don't know that?
I didn't know that, no.
Well, now you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Joan Rivers mentioned it publicly, and she was dead 2 weeks later, by the way.
You think
Oh, yes.
they axed her, eh?
They actually are. So that's common knowledge. You can look it up on any internet thing.
I'm sure.
And, yeah, Michelle Obama's a man. Obviously, you know, they've got, you know, so got pictures of her in tracksuits with a 9-inch slong hanging down her leg. No, it's a leg. Anyway.
So,
yeah, so anyway, so.
was that what strained
after
your
the
relationship,
lunch, After lunch, the people started leaving. They all just left to go to the one and only and all that, where they were booked in, you know. And I was sitting there alone, and then Elon and Kimmel came back after speaking with the crowd and came back and shat me out from a dizzy height. Why didn't you just say, I don't know, or no, or I don't know what you mean, or something like that? You know, they screamed at me, Kimmel especially. Kimmel's a very nice guy. He always laughing and smiling.
Yeah.
But he used profanity. I never heard Kimmel use profanity. Are you fucking mad? You know, that's Kimmel. And I never heard him talk like that.
Yeah.
Certainly not to me. Elon didn't say much. He just said, look, Trump is an evil guy. That was Elon, you know. Elon's not, he's like that, you know. He's not given to long stories. And then they left. I thought, oh my God. So then things were back to square one for us not talking.
So Elon hated Trump, eh? He thought he was an evil guy back then.
Well, I don't know. If he said that, I don't think I don't know if it came to hate, but I don't think he was in love with Trump.
Yeah. And what do you think's changed over the years? Why do you think he's so buddy-buddy with him now? Well,
yes, you see, Elon actually gave money to Biden for that election, that 2020 election. Later on, you know, they lived through the Trump presidency, and then when Biden stood in 2020, which of course was a rigged election, I'm sure you know that by now. Yeah, you
For
must know that
YouTube's
by
sake,
now.
I have to say it's not rigged,
It's rigged.
but you can say it. I just for
Totally rigged.
I just have to say that.
It's obviously rigged. In this last election, 15 million votes were missing.
But they still won, hey?
Well, in Biden's election, there were 15 million more votes than there were in this election that just took place.
Okay.
15 million votes just disappeared.
Yeah.
They were all rigged votes, all bots. Anyway.
What farms there?
Yeah, anyway. So Biden's election was sponsored in 2020 by Elon. And then about a year into Biden's election, a term as president, Biden invited, things started to look funny. And then in end of 2021, Biden invited all the electric car makers in America to the White House for a 1-week discussion on turning electric cars into the car of America by 2035. And they didn't invite Tesla. Now, Tesla that year had made 1 million cars and sold 1 million cars. Okay? The other 5 manufacturers had built, that's GM, Ford, and so on, had built 26 cars and not sold any. Okay? But Biden introduced the woman who was at that point CEO of GM as the leading electric car individual in America.
Yeah.
So Elon couldn't understand this. I mean, as you can imagine, he just couldn't understand this. It made no sense to him at all. Up to that point, he was the darling of Wall Street. He was the darling of the stock exchange. Nobody could believe it. He couldn't believe it. And he didn't know what he'd done wrong. He never involved himself in politics. In the January, he started saying that Biden is loony and he's a lunatic and the government is loony. So I contacted him and I said, because it started coming out, I said, you're making political statements. You do realize that these Democrats are not, they call themselves Democrats, but they are not normal. They will kill you. As you know, the body, you probably don't know, but the body count of the Clintons is well over 100 that they've killed.
The Clintons?
Yes, the Clintons have killed over 100 people. I'll say that. Please take me to court. Okay? Please. They won't take me to court. So everybody knows
it's true.
But everybody knows the body.
Everybody
the Clinton
knows
body
that,
count's about 130.
Yeah.
So, please take me to court. Please, please, please. Clintons. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, they won't. So Elon also saw that Twitter was coming out with thousands of posts saying, send him back to South Africa.
Deport Elon.
Deport him.
Yeah.
He's a piece of shit. He's a POS. He's this, he's that. Get rid of him. We don't want him here. You couldn't understand it. He was everybody's tech darling. He couldn't understand what he'd done wrong. He'd set up PayPal, which was doing 60% of all transactions on the internet at the time. He was the one who knew about that kind of thing. Anyway, and he'd set up SpaceX, which is already sending people into space. And so he didn't know what to do. And then people came to him and told him that Twitter is not a private company. It's a private company in name, but it's actually run by the crooked FBI. I don't know if you know that there's something like 5,000 of the 7,000 FBI employees in Washington, 5,000 are going to be fired now.
I didn't know that.
Read the news. 2,400 already taken a special deal, 8 months pay and get lost. Those that haven't, the other 2,600 have yet to take the deal because they're all guilty of treason. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So please take me to court, FBI, America. So anyway, where was I? Elon was told that Twitter is run by the FBI, crooked FBI.
Yeah.
That all these things that are coming out at him are bots. They are not real. It's run by the Democratic Party for Biden. In the last couple of days, we discovered that Politico was run by Biden, by the Dems, paid for out of USAID. The New York Times being paid for out of USAID. It's sickening what's going on right now in America. You know that. Okay. It's sickening. Real heads are going to roll. But anyway, so when Elon heard this about Twitter, he said, well, okay, then I'm going to buy Twitter. And I'm going to fire them all, which he did. Bought Twitter, fired 7,000 people, kept 1,000. And it was worth $7 billion, which is a huge amount of money for the database. But they pushed the price up and forced him through the Democratic partisan courts, they forced him to pay $44 billion. But he paid for it. He bought it for $44 billion. Today, it's 10 times bigger than it ever was. It's the premier free speech platform in the world, and he owns it. And the FBI is all going to go to... They're building their new premises in Gitmo right now, and the courthouse for the FBI.
How much was Twitter valued at when Elon bought it?
We valued it at $7 billion.
$7 billion. But he bought it for how much?
$44 billion.
It was a good business deal, that.
No, they forced him. They kept pushing the price up.
Yeah. And what is it valued at now?
$10 billion.
$10 billion. Because I read it was like $3 or $4 billion. I heard it because since the advertisers left.
I would say Twitter's real value right now, it pays the companies to keep the value down for a lot of reasons. Twitter's real value now is probably about 20-something billion.
Do you think your son, Elon, has made a mistake by going so political, right? Because like you said earlier, he was such a beloved tech figure.
No choice.
Now
It's called no choice.
But since he's joined politics, he's become very divisive. And because of that, he's kind of alienated a huge portion of his fan base.
Idiots, it's fine to alienate idiots. They're not worth anything. There are two kinds of people in the world, those who can do and those who can't do. Getting rid of the can't do's is a very worthwhile thing to do. Keep the can do's, get rid of the can't do's. That's what you got to do. So you see that happening now in America. The can't do's have set up tremendous systems for themselves in America where they each pay each other and make sure that, we've got that problem here in this country, big time. So in South Africa, big time, ask anybody. They'll tell you about South Africa. So we didn't realize, as a friend of mine sent me a message this morning, that he never realized America was worse than South Africa. Fears that America has been worse than South Africa. So, getting into the government there has been absolutely essential. As you can see, the poll that was held recently, 78% of Americans came on the poll, very balanced poll. America is now on its right path with Trump. Elon has gone in. They gave 240 million. We all think Soros has been funding. Have you heard of Soros?
Yeah, George Soros. Okay,
we've been reading that Soros has been giving 4 million to this crowd, 4 million to that Dem crowd, and now we've discovered USAID gave Soros $500 million. Okay, Soros just was the vehicle for the taxpayers' money to be used for what these very bad so-called Democrats, it's not Soros's money at all. Everybody's wondering where Soros got all the money from. He was getting it from the USAID. You understand?
Yeah.
So, we're talking about stuff that in days gone by would be hanging offenses. Certainly, the things that these people have done in other countries, India and so on, would be hanging offenses.
And I want to talk to you about something that was recently a very controversial thing with Elon, right? So I'll just ask the question and then I'm very curious to see your answer and we'll wrap up soon.
No problem.
At President Trump's inauguration on January 20th, 2025, Elon made a gesture that some interpreted as a Nazi salute. Do you believe your son intended to do a Nazi salute?
No. Elon was so nervous getting out there. He's not good at public speaking. He's got a lot to learn on that score. It takes a long time to be a public speaker. Some people have a natural ability. It depends on your intelligence. The more intelligent you are, the harder it is. Dopes find it very easy to talk on a stage.
It's the more you think you get in your head.
The more head you've got, the more brain you've got, the harder it is.
Yeah.
So if you find yourself nervous on a stage, it's probably because you're quite smart.
So you think he did that out of nerves?
Oh, yes. I mean, I could see him struggling, trying to get through the few things he has to say as fastly as possible.
Because he was hopping around. He looked very
No,
comfortable.
he was trying very hard to speak quickly and get off, you know, and not fumble.
Yeah.
No, and the arm in this. No, they came up with this afterwards. That's absolute nonsense. I mean, they came up to that afterwards, and many photos were sent to me of Kamala Harris doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah, there was a photo.
Only much
though.
more.
Yeah.
Hey?
It was a photo, not a video.
Yes, many photos
Yeah.
of Hillary Clinton, Obama, Kamala Harris, and all these people doing exactly the same thing. So even much more like that.
So
Whereas Elon just went like that.
no. Elon like tucked the thumb and everything. He like
Oh, no,
it felt like the Fuhrer was in the room.
No. Elon didn't do anything like that. Elon was just nervous, you know, just wanted to get off.
Yeah.
And no,
So
that's
then
rubbish.
Why didn't he apologize and just because people
Well,
obviously
you only apologize if you've done something wrong.
there was massive backlash, and then he went to Twitter and started posting like anti-Semitic jokes, basically saying that.
That's his way. Maybe he did. I haven't seen
Yeah.
anything like that. But it's Elon's way of dealing with things. He's not as ambassadorial as Kimball, you know. As I said to you earlier, you know, when people meet Kimball, they feel like they've made a friend for life. You
Yeah.
know? When they meet Elon, they figure this guy really doesn't like me. So it's just two different kinds of people.
So if you don't believe your son did the Nazi salute, I mean, would you be comfortable doing that gesture on stage in front of people?
Well, I wouldn't.
Because if you go like this, right?
Yeah.
And like my heart goes out to you, your hand is facing this way, and then it goes like that. But he went like this and then like did the switch up. And his,
Oh, no.
like try that movement. Just do that movement and you'll feel it feels wrong.
No.
But so
You know, I mean, Netanyahu, there's so many things I can talk to you about.
yeah.
You know, Netanyahu is like a family friend of ours, you know. I mean, he described Elon as 2 years ago, he said Elon's the de facto president of the United States. Netanyahu said Elon is the de facto president of the United States. He's actually the president, not Biden. And so, no. I mean, that's ridiculous.
You think
But
so?
I
want to ask this one follow-up question, right?
Hamas phoned me, you know.
I actually want to ask you that after this. So if your son didn't do the salute, how do you explain this one, right? On January 25th, it was like 4 or 5 days after Trump's inauguration, Elon gave a speech at a rally for one of Germany's far-right political parties.
Oh, no, it's not a far-right
called
party.
AFD, in
Not
which
far-right.
he said that Germans had too much focus on the past and they need to move past
Yes, no.
the sins of their past.
AFD is run by a woman for a start. The leader's a woman and all the main elements are women, which is telling. It's quite telling.
Mm.
Because masculinity has disappeared in Germany. It's been sunk. You know,
We need men, man.
no,
We
men.
need to bring
The
back
men aren't
men
there
in
anymore.
this world.
They've all been turned into pussies, you know. So we can say that in South Africa, because we ain't pussies here, man. But at any rate, so it's taken women to get a hold of Germany and say, look, you can't go on in this silly direction.
Yeah.
And so I've discussed that. AFD called me like months ago already, and I've had interviews with them. They are very balanced, very center.
Really?
Nothing. You see, in among the lefties, or whatever you call these people whose brain has got
Yeah.
something wrong with it, or
Yeah.
some sort of germ they've got in their brain, anyone who doesn't agree with them is right wing. So, you know, that doesn't work. You know, it doesn't work. So what I've said to people, if someone, Elon is very dead center.
Mm.
So in some respects, that's not so great for more so-called conservative Americans, because Elon is not, he's dead center. You know, they would much
He seems
right.
very dead center.
He's very, very dead center. And so if somebody right now came to Elon from the left with a really good, so-called left, with a very good idea,
Mm.
he would say, no, let's talk about it. Somebody came to him from the so-called right with a very good idea.
Yeah.
He's not saying, I don't take from him and I do from him. I don't, you know, he would take, he's in the middle. He'd take from anyone who came to him with a good idea. It doesn't matter if it's a good idea, that's all he'd be interested in. No. AFD is most definitely nothing more than a common sense party. Common sense party.
Yeah.
You know, and the other parties are pushing the idea that men all are actually real women, really actually women with a schlong, all that kind of stuff, and all that kind of thing, which is not true.
Yeah. And I want to ask, right, do you think as someone, you're a father, would you consider yourself a good father?
I think I'm probably, from what people tell me, just reflecting on what I've been told, not now, what I was told when Elon and Kimball were smaller or younger and everything, I'm probably the best father ever, based on what people have told me. Based on what my son's attitude towards me has been sometimes, I'm a lousy father. But there are many people, certainly women that I know who've said to me, when I've met their mother, they've said to me, listen, that's not really my mother. I said, what? No, that's not really my mother. That's not my mother. I had a much better mother than that. I don't know where this woman comes from. Women have said that to me, quite a few of them, because they fight with their mothers, you see.
Yeah. And do you think Elon is a good dad?
No, he hasn't been a good dad. The first child was too much with nannies and died in the care of a nanny. Okay? Now, what I'm saying, if Elon hears this, he's going to shoot me or something. But anyway, that's what I think. That's no good. They were too rich. They were too much here and there, too many nannies. Then he had 5 children with the same woman, 5 sons, all brought up. Each one had its own nanny. You followed me?
Mm-hmm.
When they got divorced, the nannies were 6 on this side and 6 on that side. So it was really a weird situation.
Just never really spent time with kids, hey?
No. The result is the boys and Kimball's 2 boys grew up not able to cross a street, even the street outside. That, as my daughters would say to me, Alexandra and Rose, Dad, you won't believe it. Elon's kids and Kimball's boys and Elon's boys, they can't cross the road. We have to hold their hands to cross the road when they're like 14 years old. Can't cross the road.
And have you met his kids, like spent a lot of time with them?
Not a lot of time, but I've spent time with them. They're very nice. They were very nice and smart and very pleasant. The one can play the piano like Chopin, and so on. But they didn't spend enough time with them. So these 2 eldest boys, the 2 eldest boys, Kimball's eldest son and Elon's eldest son, have declared themselves to be women.
So I know, that was actually my next question.
Both my sons, eldest sons, have declared themselves to be women.
So they were born a man and now they identify
That's
as
bullshit,
a woman. How do you don't agree, hey?
It's bullshit, yeah. Bullshit.
And how do you feel Elon's handled the situation? Because they've completely separated, hey? Like I know his daughter has filed to completely leave the relationship. She wants to change her name.
Well, I can't get into this personal.
To do with him.
It's his business.
Yeah.
My advice to him is, to Elon is, the best creeds in the world will tell you, accept people for who they are, not for what they were. I might meet a man who was once in prison, like I'm due to speak to this mafia man. I'm really looking forward to it. Are you accepting of what they are, not from what they were? Surely, you know what I mean. The other thing is that in South Africa, in my generation anyway, we had the military. So when you finished school, you couldn't go around crying and saying to your dad, yeah. You went to the military and they knocked it out of you very quickly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the newish thing these days, where you can, why you're not a success is because I'm actually a woman, or I'm actually something else, or I'm actually a dog or a cat or something. It's crap, And, in years gone by, we've all had, maybe you have too, we've all had the odd friend who was just misfit, couldn't, and you hope in time they get out of it. And,
I've always been the misfit.
well, sometimes I've even had guys who were big misfits.
Yeah. And
then somehow they got it right. And I've walked in a place and some giant guy has come up to me and said, hello, I'm so-and-so, And it's Jared or something. And I say, Jared? And, Tony's son. Oh, my God, you were the misfit. Oh, I got it right. I'm now Southern District's bodybuilding champion, this kind of thing.
And how did you feel about Elon's wives?
Well, fathers are not terribly interested in any of their children's husbands or wives, more or less, unless they really go out of their way. I think that's a common thing. Nobody's good enough to marry your daughter, surely.
Yeah.
And if certainly that's how I feel. And I'm glad you met Jana because you can see how terrible it is.
What, your relationship?
Yes. Terrible, eh?
I haven't spent too much time. Yeah. It seems like
unless you very
love each other.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
So she'll be here shortly again. But anyway, so what was your question again?
You were talking about Elon's son who transitioned or identifies
I don't
as
know
a
what
girl
to do
now.
about that. Elon's got to deal with it. It's a bit worrying, I ask my daughters. Daughters usually women have a much better approach to these type of things than men. Men are a bit sort of stuck in a rut, Women, you can usually better off listening to what women have to say. They're not as, women have to deal with piss, shit and vomit and all kinds of stuff. And that's only from themselves. Then they have to deal with from babies as well, If you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Men don't know what that is. You see, throw blood to a man, he faints.
My brother has just had 2 kids, and he is the most hands-on dad I've ever met.
Well, that's just unusual.
He's changing the nappies.
Well, that's very unusual. I've
burping
never
them.
changed a nappy in my life.
Never changed
And
the nappy.
I don't intend to.
So you never changed Elon's nappies, eh?
No, I don't intend to either. No, I vomit when I do that. No, it's not my scene. But women have to deal with that from when they're very young, from when they're 12 years old. So women are less judgmental than men. Men don't have to deal with anything, nothing at all, in that sort of respect. So that's why a woman doesn't have a problem looking after children. They're not squeamish. And but so where these transgender type of bullshit things come along, best to ask the girls. And so I ask the girls, and they say to me, Kimmel's older son, he looks quite, I don't know whether you call it a he or a she, I don't know. It looks quite good, or they look like good, or whatever, He's quite pretty. Which is kind of weird, and so on. I don't know what to say about it. What I can answer that is this, and this is so much simpler. Over the years, I've had actually 3 people there have been others that I've been aware of, but I've had 3 individual adult parents, 2 men and 1 woman, come to me at different times to tell me they've discovered something incredibly terrible, or something incredibly terrible has happened. And I say, well, come over. They come over and you can see they're white and their faces are like hanging. What is it? You don't know what they're going to say. And each one said to me the different names of the boys. We've discovered he's a gay. My son is a gay. That's a man telling me that. And the guy just collapsing on a settee. I don't know what to do. I want to kill myself. That's a man telling me in the past that his son is gay. Then that happened with another man as well. My response to them was, don't worry about it. It's not that serious. It's not that serious. I would use examples. So-and-so was gay. So-and-so, trying to think of anybody I can think of, was gay. Some famous guy, I don't know.
Yeah.
Trying to think of somebody who was supposedly gay. It's not that serious. And they sort of went on. And when you see them these days with the 2 men, they avoid me now because they don't want to be reminded of the time they were like that. So they kind of avoid me. They were good friends once. I never see them. The woman came to see me. I communicate with regularly the last couple of days even. She came to see me, and she has 5 children. And the youngest one, she came to me and said, well, I'd been out with him and her a few times. I've known her for 40 years.
Yeah.
And she came to see me, and she said, terrible things happen. And of course, I knew he was gay because I'd seen him as a 17-year-old. I knew he was gay. I could see it. He was gay. And he was into clothes and all that sort of stuff, men's clothes. So she said to me, Jared is gay. And she didn't know what to do. I don't know how to do it. I don't know what to do. I don't know what I could do. You know, that's about your child being gay.
Yeah.
So let me tell you right now, there's no one in this town or anywhere in the world that I can think of that you could go to and say, by the way, have you noticed, we just discovered at school here, your son is gay. You know, that they would go, oh, no, you're joking. No way. You know, I mean, what are you saying?
Yeah.
And I mean, so that's that. Right now.
If you could go back.
If I went to your father now and said, you're gay.
You'd probably go, that makes sense.
No. No, he would break out into sweat like you can't believe. Oh, my God.
I don't think you'd mind that much. But I want to ask you a question. If you could go back and
First of all, he knows you, so he knows it's not true. But, you know.
If you could go back and change one thing about how you raised your kids, what would it be?
I would have been nicer to their mother, and we wouldn't perhaps have been divorced. I would have done more than that to stay married to her because I loved her very much. And we were childhood sweethearts at school and everything. So I would have been nicer to her because as we got a bit older, you know, we got too self-assured and started, you know, taking leave of not worrying and not bringing flowers, not taking care of each other.
Yeah.
She was always good. I was the one who was the problem. I just lost interest, you know, sort of thing.
And just before we end off, I heard a story recently about you connecting Cyril Ramaphosa and Elon Musk on a call, right?
That was this week.
So can you tell me what the circumstances around that were and why they came to you to put them in touch with Elon?
Well, last year, in about May, the PA of, before the election last year, the personal assistant, of Ramaphosa, Cyril Ramaphosa, he asked me if he could meet me. So he came down here and he landed in here at Saldan in a jet. And it's a small runway, but he landed in a jet. And then we had lunch at a local hotel. And he asked me if I would give a letter to Elon from Ramaphosa, a long letter, asking Elon to come back to South Africa and how much they appreciate Elon and won't he invest in South Africa and all that kind of stuff. I looked at the letter and I said, look, this is, with the election coming up, this is, you doing this to add credibility to the ANC for this election. Elon's not going to add credibility to the election. So off he went. Then they contacted me and said, don't send the letter. So I said, okay, I won't send the letter, but I did actually send it. Out of interest, I sent it to Elon afterwards, but they never spoke. Then this week, after Elon came out last week saying, Trump came out saying that there are groups in this country that are being racially discriminated against, and they're not accepting it. And then also came out that a farmer in South Africa is 3 times more likely to be killed than an active policeman. And Elon said something to the same effect, that they're done with this expropriation of land. And there is that thing. Their current bill reads that the government can take your watch if they want.
They just passed a bill that said they can expropriate land without compensation, right?
No. The bill that was, the original bill was expropriation with compensation.
Okay.
A new bill came out, which went through very quietly about 3 years ago, which was not read properly by either party. I don't think there was an effective opposition. And the new bill says they can take anything they want from you without compensation. You can take your watch, your shoes, anything. Never mind, your house, anything. It's not farms or something like that, anything. And this is the thing that they are now focusing on. And this is very bad. So anyway, Elon said, based on this, you're done. You guys are getting no more aid from South Africa, which is crazy because America is sending $500 million here for guys who go into the bush and have sex indiscriminately and get AIDS with dozens of partners every day. And now the American taxpayers who are working 2 jobs in America have to pay their taxes for these people to have AIDS treatment. That's rubbish. That's insane. That's nonsense. But if you don't agree with me, please give me half your salary because I'll give it to them as well. See how you feel about it. I'm sure you won't. Anyway, so on Monday night, I was phoned while I was having dinner at a restaurant, and Chalky phoned me. He's a very handsome black guy. He looks like James Bond, sort of black version of James Bond. And he said to me, very tough guy, and he said to me, Errol, how are you, my friend? You see, I said, yeah, what? He says, listen, Cyril wants to speak to Elon. Can he phone Elon? So I said, you can't just phone Elon out of cold. You know, he's now a member of the cabinet. So he wouldn't be able to speak to you, you know, and he'd be really annoyed if you phone him cold. What I can do is I can phone Elon and ask him to phone Ramaphosa. Because Elon would have to, as he's a member of the cabinet, he's part of a team. He has to get permission. Can't just, because, you know, this we now have a situation where a general in Biden's time went, or rather Trump's first term's time, went behind Trump's back and spoke to China. He's now up for treason charges. He's head of the Chief General Staff. They've taken all his photos down. He's going to be arrested shortly. Anyway, so Elon can't do that. So I said, if you send me Ramaphosa's number, I will ask Elon if he's prepared to phone. So then I phoned Elon, and then I told him that I'd send him, I said, listen, I need to speak to you. He's very busy. So I said, I'm going to text you some stuff. Please look at it right away. So I texted him the drift of it instead of keeping him on the phone. And then he phoned right away. He must have got permission. He probably got hold of Trump right away because it was daytime there. It was nighttime here. It was probably 10 o'clock in the morning there. And he apparently must have got hold of Trump right away and said, Ramaphosa, president in South Africa, wants, because presidents talk to presidents, you see, not wants me to speak to him. What do you think? And I imagine Trump, knowing him as I do, I've met Trump twice, would have said, go for it. And so Elon phoned Chalky phoned at 7. Before 8 o'clock, Elon was speaking to Ramaphosa. And then Chalky texted me a little later saying, they spoke thanks to you.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's nice.
And I mean, do you guys speak often, you and Elon, on the phone?
No. Look, speaking to your son, you're still maybe young. Maybe your dad speaks to you a lot. But as you get older, not that much older, generally speaking, if I look at my dad, you know, he had a very hard time in the war and everything. His happiness was reading the paper and doing crosswords. He was very good at crosswords, as Elon has often pointed out. He won the prizes and everything. But anyway, if I phoned my house in those days when my mum and dad were, and I said, when I was like more your age or something, but older maybe, and my dad answered the phone, and I said to my dad, hello, Dad, it's me. How are you? He would have said to me, have you had an accident or something? What's wrong? I'd say, no, nothing. I'm just phoning to see how you are. He'd say, listen, have you had an accident? And then I'd say, no, I just want to know how your week was. He'd say, Cora, that was my mother. Errol's had an accident.
Why was you loopy?
Well, think about what I'm doing. Who the hell phones your father and asks him how he is?
I swear, me and you have had like the complete opposite.
Nobody
lives.
does that.
I phone my dad and my mom.
No, well, you're
like
lucky.
5 times a
Nobody
day.
does that. Not in the normal world.
See,
this is what happens
parents,
when you
man.
phone your dad. Hi, Dad. Is Mom there? Yeah, just hang on. Cora! Errol on the phone. That's your dad.
Yeah.
Saying to your dad, what do you want for your birthday, Dad? What? Do you want to speak to your mother? That's your dad.
Yeah.
I want anything. Don't ask me stupid questions. That's my dad. That's all dads I know. Every single dad I know. Unless your son is a little boy.
Yeah.
If he's a little boy, like Rashi will phone me and say, Dad, I want to have McFlurry after school. He's got his own phone, by the way. He's much better phone than me. I bought it for him for Christmas. It's got 3 cameras. Dad, I want McFlurry after school. Where are you? I'm in class. You can't phone me from class. He's now my son. You see, this 8-year-old, 7-year-old, he's nearly 8. I'm pushing his age for a reason at the moment. Yeah, but can I get McFlurry? Okay. I'll get you can get a McFlurry after school. But that's because he's only 8. But even then he doesn't say to me, Hello, Dad. How was your day? Are you having a good time, Dad? Are you all right today, Dad? Don't expect that from your child, from a son anyway. Your daughters are totally different. Totally different. If you don't phone your daughters once a week, they want to know what's wrong. That's me, all my daughters. They phone me, I have to ask them everything about what they did that week.
Yeah.
I'm sure the lady here understands what I'm talking about. But with boys, you don't phone your sons and say, how was your week? Did you have a good time this week? Where did you go? And as you get older, as your dad gets older, he doesn't want to know about your nonsense anymore. But when you're younger, they're very interested. You know?
Yeah.
When Elon was a student, or rather when he was a student, yes, and he would phone me on the Thursdays. Ooh, I used to keep him on the phone for as long as possible because I wanted to know everything. I was so worried.
Yeah.
Remember, he was only 20.
Yeah.
Or 18 or 19 or 20. So I would keep him on the phone as long as possible to what happened. And one time he phoned me and said, I'm working in a restaurant, Dad. And then the next time he phoned me, he said, you got this day job or this night job in this restaurant as a student. So the next time he phoned me, he said, hey, Dad, this guy's trying to stab me in the restaurant. The other waiter tried to stab me. I said, what? He said, I said, but I dealt with it, Dad. He knows judo, you see. It's where you take the guy and throw them on the ground.
Yeah, I know.
Said, I threw the guy on the ground and everything. So all I wanted to know is, Jesus, don't put the phone down. I want to phone the restaurant. I want to know everything. Are you all right? That's because he's so young.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
And but as they get older, things are a little different,
Yeah.
But women, it's never like that. Doesn't matter how old they are. My oldest daughter is 51 this year, will be. When we speak to each other, it's everything. She makes passion flicks. She makes full-length movies. She owns the entire studio. She's got huge studios in Atlanta. It's all the sets in the world. She makes one movie every 6 weeks to 3 months. It's like passion flick, like Netflix. It's amazing. But when I talk to her, I have to ask her about everything and the passion flicks. These are romance movies, the last thing I'm interested in.
Thank you for your time today. We really appreciate it. This went a lot longer than I thought it was going to go.
That's all right.
Yeah, thank you so much. And
I'm sure you'll edit it. All right.
But thank you guys. And thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Wide Awake podcast. And I'll see you all very soon. Cheers.
Okay. It's fun. I don't normally talk so much.